and reading meeting. Maybe you can unmute yourself and say good morning. It's always nice. We're a small team.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Morning, Catherine.
Morning. Yeah. Okay, great.
Morning, Catherine. Morning, everyone.
Morning. Good to see you all. So we'd like to start our training today, and we've got a very exciting topic. It's more of a real in-depth discussion around policies and HR strategies, something that if you're in HR is of great importance and continues to be ever evolving in organizations, at our places of work, at our businesses, and we can borrow some of those policies even in our own personal circumstances. So I'm very happy to be facilitating this training today, and I hope that we can all interact, we can learn, and I'm sure everybody will bring a world of experience in terms of sharing or maybe what we'll take away. I'd also like to thank ACHRP for facilitating and putting up the training. They always have great trainings that we can all learn from. So maybe we can start off with a word of prayer, and then after that, we can maybe unmute again and say maybe some of your expectations. Anybody who'd like to pray for us? Always nice to start with a word of prayer. Welcome, Millicent. So let's pray. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus, we come in front of you this morning with thanksgiving in our hearts. God, we thank you for a brand new day that you have given us. We thank you, God, for the gift of being together and coming together to learn. As we learn and as we share, may we make sure that it gets our careers to the next stage. May we be able to go and implement at our places of work, at our places of businesses. May we continue to influence each other positively as we build the HR career. As we get into this program, we ask you, Lord, that to give us the time and to steady all our other activities so that we may come together to learn. I pray this believing and trusting in your holy name. Amen. Great. So let me share my screen and maybe just for learning purposes and expectations, maybe we can unmute ourselves and say, what do we expect from today's program? Anyone would like to share? Anyone would like to share the expectations for today's program? What you're planning to take away?
Hi, Catherine.
Hello, Millicent.
My teacher, you talked to me, you shall see.
Oh, I did. Nice. Here we are again.
Here we are again.
Yeah.
So, and you've also taught me many things. We've been together before Corona. You used to teach me many.
Oh, nice.
And it's good to have you here. So
yeah.
One of my expectations is that because I work for an NGO.
You work in an NGO?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we get all our policies from our mother, which is
your head office.
Yeah. So how I'd like to know what strategies to utilize to contextualize this, localize those policies, and also how to put in place strategies, especially one that revolves around change and succession. Thank you.
Nice to connect with you again. You can hear me?
Yes.
Great. Yeah. Nice to connect with you, Millicent, again. And that's one of the things that always comes up when we run this training, is that how do we bring together our HQ policies to make them localize them in the Kenyan context or in the country that we are working in. What is required and how does it still remain to be global practice if you're coming from a multinational, well as it as well that it's going to reflect best practices, that you don't lose the labor laws in that country, and also you keep to the legal framework. So that's a good expectation, Millicent, and nice to reconnect with you again. Anybody else? Anybody else?
So from my end, our business has just been acquired by, yes, we have been a global market business, but it has been acquired recently. So one of the key areas that we are now playing around is, because the fact that we have been acquired and we are formulating one company, they already have their HR policies that are related to New York State and California and San Francisco. So they want, we use their handbook for the Kenya. So one of the projects that I'm currently doing is putting their policies so that they match our employment act. So this course comes in handy because that's the current project I'm working on.
Oh, well done, ME. What's your full name?
Phoebe Nafula.
Oh, Phoebe, yeah, nice, yeah. And I think you're really at a good space right now, Phoebe. In terms of, I don't know who was the majority stakeholder. Was it like a full buyout? Was it, I take it's not a joint venture, it's not a merger. So I guess the new owner has come and said, well, I'm the new sheriff in town. I'd like us to consider doing this. And I guess you're trying to get the true north. And that means that maybe what was in the old handbook and what comes into the new one, there could be some changes. And how are those changes going to be accepted by the employees? I guess I don't know whether you'll be also be talking about culture, new culture,
Yes.
new values,
Yes.
all that, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yeah, the look and feel of it, yeah. So I guess it's a good space. Yet challenging, I must say, but I'm sure you are up to it, and we can throw in some pointers, what maybe we have done, what are one of the quick fixes, and how you can come out successfully, and everybody to feel that they own part of the process or the whole process. So well done. Someone
That
else?
will be helpful. Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome. Yeah. Someone else? Expectations for today?
Good morning, Catherine.
Morning, Suzanne.
Yeah, I think my expectations today is when I saw this training, what came into my mind is that the policies that we have at our workplace, and we are currently developing our 5-year strategic plan. And I looked at the HR strategy, that is number 3 in your bullets, and I thought it is I would be in the right place to attend this training so that I can just try and listen to you and see what strategies can we put into this plan for the coming 5 years that can be able to drive the organization in the right direction. And also looking at the policies that we have in place, are they speaking to the legal framework? Are they speaking to the content? Is it right in as far as what is required is concerned? So that is my really focus today, just to listen to you, and also look at what I have in the office, and just see whether it is right or there's something I need to do just to amend them. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, fantastic. Good project again, HR, the organization strategy, mapping up the next 5 years. It's almost being like magicians. I keep thinking, oh, these strategies, how are they going to unpack them in the next 5 years, and looking at where the business is now, the micro environment, your competition, how you want to drive the business, leveraging on technology, all those things. And then making sure that from the organizational strategy, you formulate your HR strategy that is going to drive the business, assist drive the business. So I believe that you will take some good pointers away so that you come out shining. One of the things I like about these seminars is that we can all share. And when you go back, people just think, what? Where have you been? You know, you're the best thing after sliced bread, after everything is said and done. So good place. We all seem to be doing one thing or the other that really speaks into this. And of course, we know that without policies, without standardization, then it's almost going to be chaotic. You know, there will be no there will be no fairness, there will be no equity, will not be transparent, you know, will make rules and regulations based on the needs of an individual compared to having one standard way of doing things that everybody understands and ascribes to. But one of the things that we also know is that not everybody is going to be happy with the standard policies that we have. That's the truth of the matter. But I keep on saying is that if some people do not understand and they do not appreciate the policies, it is our responsibility to show them the greater good as to why we have this policy while they would prefer something else. That's the genesis of the matter, that we are able to go back and say, hey, why do we have this compared to why don't we have that? And of course, there've been many things right now. If hot on the HR desk, I don't know if you're plugging into groups or into your the peers that you are in the area of your profession, what are you discussing? I think one of the things is we are talking about diversity and inclusion, and right now there is hot on the heels if you're coming from a multinational where we are talking about the LGBTQ rights, you know, and and it's hot on the heels, you know, from a country perspective. What does that mean? And we'll talk about it. Maybe we can see how do we feel as a person, but how do we also support the organization if that's going to be implemented, and where does it where is the legal framework, and how do we protect the business, and how do we protect the people who work in the business? That's important. We're also talking about bespoke benefits. You know, are we able to make sure that the various generations that we are working in now are able to understand the policies that I have and the benefits that I offer as an organization, so that they're attracted to stay. That's the truth of the matter. We want to have different ways of working because of the way the global economy is going. Do I need people to work for me full time, or do I want to make sure that I contract you as when I need your services? And what does that mean? Is there a disadvantage in terms of full engagement, commitment, and knowing that also my trade secrets are not going to go out there? So there's so much happening in the HR space, good things, you know, that can really stretch you out and be able to make sure that you're doing much more. There's the AI now. That's the big space that is in HR. I mean, from your recruitment to your onboarding to your performance management, how are you leveraging on AI to be able to do that, and how are you supporting that to be able to provide data, to be able to provide metrics for you to be able to move forward? So a lot happening in that space, and I hope that we are all plugging in one way or another, even if it's just getting yourself ready to understand the frameworks, to understand where you can get support or who can mentor you, or are you also in that space and you're an expert and you're trying to support those initiatives that at a larger HR level that everybody is speaking about, that you can be there. Okay. Great. I see a number of us have joined as well. Welcome. We had already set some of the expectations. Feel free to interject or just lift your hand. I'd like it to be more discussion. We have firm discussions, good discussions, so that we go out feeling that it was worth our time. So if you've come to my trainings or we've trained together, I'll pick you to just give us some input. So don't feel that I have ambushed you. Just make sure that you can share your experiences so that we all go out knowing that we have learned. Okay, so let's start off, and just a point of around why policies are important, what strategies and maybe just to put into context, what are some of the very, very familiar and very important HR policies that we have in organizations? Anyone? Just the very basic ones that we know and we love. Anyone? And what's the, yeah. Thank you, Salome.
We have the training policy. And maybe I can add the sexual harassment one.
The sexual harassment one. Okay, great. Yeah. Training policy. Some people refer to learning and development. Sexual harassment policy. Someone else? Thank you, Salome. Yeah, so many. There could be as many as we are here.
Catherine?
Yes.
Yes, I think we have the complaints handling policy and recruitment policy, child safeguarding policy.
Great. Great policy, especially this child safeguarding. Especially if you work a lot with children, but that's not to say I think everybody should have that policy. Over time, it has become very common. If you're working with investors and due diligence is being done, you'll be asked if you have a child safeguarding policy. You'll also see they're asking about anti-slavery policy. Who's heard of it? You know, who has heard of it? You know, things that, wow, you ever thought who would enslave the other, you know? But think about the people who work in the Gulf. It's almost like slavery, isn't it? So it's important. These are some of the things that are best practices now that they are coming out, and we need to think about through in terms of preempting. If I want an investor to come and work, to inject some money in my business, what would they be looking at? Especially these big donors. International Finance Corporation will ask you for all sorts of policies around people to make sure that people are protected, but also when you're working with third parties, that those you're able to protect those third parties as well. Someone else? Very common one, the recruitment policy. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Susan.
Neptune.
Yes.
We have the performance management policy, leave administration policy.
Good. Yeah. Performance management policy that forms it's the centerfold. For me, performance is the centerfold of any organization. Then we ring-fence it with all these other things, you know. So that's a very important policy. Someone else? Different types of leaves and how we administer those kind of leaves. Someone else?
Catherine, maybe I can add.
Yes.
We also have the anti-corruption policy and the whistleblowing policy. Yeah.
Anti-corruption and whistleblowing policy to make sure that we are protecting the business from any malpractices, you know, and if you're not brave enough to go and say, well, this is happening, then you have a framework and a process on how to follow and make sure that you can report to protect the business and not to jeopardize the chances of the business staying afloat. Well done. I think that's a very important policy. Someone else? Someone else? How do we pay?
Remuneration policy.
Compensation and benefits policy, an important one. Someone else? There could be many others. Yes. Hi, Thomas.
Equity policy.
Yes, equity. Okay. Diversity and inclusion and equity policy, which is very important for us to be able to know that when you say that you're an equal opportunity employer, then you come in and then there's all these kind of things that really supports our programs around diversity and inclusion and equity, and how do they look like, and why is it important? supporting people to feel that they are totally engaged, that they're able to voice their opinions, and their opinions will be heard, and drive the organization to the next level. I guess that the intention of every organization, and I keep on saying, is for it to be a center of excellence, for it to be a trailblazer, and to be ahead of competition. And that can only be achieved if we have policies and strategies that we have put in place for us to be able to reference from and for us to be able to move forward. Yes, Thomas, good morning. You've raised your hand. Thomas, we can see you and you've raised your hand.
Yes, I was just saying another policy, very important,
Yes.
is lactation and breastfeeding breaks policy. Lactation
Yeah.
and
Lactation.
breastfeeding breaks policy, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Thomas, do you have it as a standalone in your organization?
No, we have not started implementing.
Yeah.
But I'm aware. I'm aware that quite a number of organizations have it as a standalone policy, especially the Kenya Human Rights Commission. Yeah, like I've visited their institution and I've seen it, and they have a standalone policy.
Okay. So in your organization, do you have a mother lactation room?
No, we don't have.
You don't have. Okay. So in terms of the legal framework, just open it up for discussion. Do you think that Thomas is going against the law? Anyone?
Yeah, because it's required to have a mother lactation room in every organization.
Great. Someone else? Anybody else? Yeah. So you're required by law to have a mother lactation room in every organization. And that was passed, I can't remember which year it was. And one of the things that when it was hot on the coals of the hills, when that was being implemented, look for a room, make sure that that room is ready for mothers. Of course, if you're a big organization, you have branches around the country, how it needed some bit of budget, or not a bit. I mean, we needed to allow for some budgets and for those rooms to be ready, because it's not just a room. You needed to make sure that it has power, it has a fridge, it has a sink, it has a seat. It's nicely, there's some bit of nice things on the wall. So one of the things that I did was to look for sponsorship. It was easy, some of the things that we do. So you provide me a medical cover and we talk about wellness. How about you thinking that you're a good business partner, and why don't you sponsor a room? You talk about wellness. So there was a big campaign around the service providers saying, and we'll be happy to reference and to make sure that we say that we are the one who sponsored it. And that got me a lot of brownie points around the organization and mothers being happy, lactation rooms which were well spread out, and they were comfortable to work in, and to make sure that mothers were comfortable when they came back to work. So it's nice. I like what I hear, that they can be standalone. On the other side, they can be referenced around your maternity cover, leave policy, maternity leave policy. So all that can come there. Okay, great. Anybody else would like to say anything? Okay. So we are going to have a discussion around HR policies versus I mean, not versus, and HR strategy. What's a strategy and what's a policy? Anyone? Of course, I've put it there. I would like to hear someone who has, they know that we already developed a HR strategy. And what is in your HR strategy? What does it comprise of? How does it look like? What are some of the things that you've put there, the things that really drive the business? Anyone? Let's share. Okay. So as okay, yeah, Thomas? You're on mute.
Yeah, my is that a HR policy is like they are like guidelines that help you in making decisions in your duties or in your functional areas such as recruitment, training, or learning and development, so that those decisions are going to be, if I have to use the word, uniform across the board. Then the HR strategy is like the vision that you have for your function. It gives you like a plan on how now you will do your recruitment and your learning and development and all those other functions within your area. Yes.
Thank you, Thomas. Very well put. Aligning your strategy with the business and how the HR strategy supports the implementation of the policies and procedures that you have in the organization. Someone else? Let's share and tell us whether you have a HR strategy in your organization. How did you come about developing it and getting it done? Welcome, Jane. I can see you right there, my peer.
Hi, Catherine. Thank you.
How
And
you
I'm
doing?
joined late.
That's okay. Tell us about our HR strategy.
For me, HR policies are broad statements an organization has put in place with the purpose of dealing with certain issues the business will be handling in terms of recruitment, in terms of what we have discussed earlier. But the strategy is now tactical processes, plans and tactical processes and activities of how you're going to implement all those broad policies. Yeah.
Okay, great. Totally agree. Jane, anything else to add?
From what I've just found, I think we wanted to discuss about the HR strategy and whether we have one. Yes, we do. You said, how did we come about developing it? For us, we involve, it is participatory, especially in the senior leadership, so that there's input and there's buy-in, of course, but it's a vision of what we have for our people, taking into consideration that people are our greatest asset and we can't deliver business without them. So in there we have, of course, some of the aspirations and the things we intend to do to develop our talent and to retain and be able to attract. So things like good total reward, L&D, staff well-being, our culture, looking at our culture and how we're going to work on that. So that's what we have in our strategy.
And of course, one of the things I keep on saying that as much as you can make a fantastic strategy, referencing and checking everything that is outlined from the organizational strategy, making sure that you have a good framework, you have the checklist, you have the metrics. If it's not articulated and it's not checked on from time to time to see the milestones and if you're not able to evaluate it and to see how far in we are articulating it and what milestones we are making, what success or challenges that we are facing, is as good as not having it. That's the thing, because the strategy is a real good barometer for us to know where we are at. If it's a 5-year strategy that it referenced the organizational strategy, then it should be in tandem. When we are reporting based on the strategy and feeds into the organization strategy. Sometimes we seem to have a disconnect because we are so rushed by the business to do the things that need us to do, and it's no fault of our own. Unfortunately, that's the truth of the matter. Everybody is so busy. We forget to stop and take stock and say, where are we at? You know, and only when we ask also, it's the half-year review of our strategies, do we go back and say, oh, what did we do? What did we say we were going to do here? We never did it. How did we not do it? What can we do in a week's time? You know, so I just like to remind people that your HR strategy is, let's put it like this, your Bible of truth around your organization. And in your HR department, put out there every day. We are looking at it and we are referencing and saying, well, we are really doing a good job, but we need to change the strategy because the circumstances have changed. The business has changed, the environment has changed. We need to do something different and to go back and say, maybe we need to speak with our senior management team and say, we need to review this framework and come back and say, this is how it should be. So let's never forget that that's an important one. Someone else? Anybody else? So as we say, rightly put it, and I won't read word for word, that the HR policies and procedures provide guidelines on employee-employer relationship, how we are going to engage with each other, which impact information on acceptable norms of behavior at work, schedules, health and safety, employment laws, you know, conflict resolution and disciplinary measures. You know, when you come to work here, this is how we conduct ourselves. This is how it's going to be. I didn't hear someone say, and of course we know that. I see many HR manuals when I look through them, and it's almost similar. Everything is almost similar, which is fine. I'm not saying it's wrong. Is the code of conduct a big one? You know, this is what it is. And then after that, I see a conflict of interest policy, and then it now starts having all the other policies that define the values of HR and the work that HR is expected to do. I think the code of conduct remains a very important policy because it speaks into someone's behavior. It speaks into our organization culture and values, how we want to treat people and how we're going to treat people in a way that everybody is expected to ascribe to it. So that's something that really needs focus and needs to be very bespoke around your organization. You know, sometimes we just cut and paste and say, oh, this is a good value, and put it there without thinking, will it really fit my business? The industry that I'm working in, is this something that is extremely important for us to have? So even when we are having that code of conduct, I would like you to go and look at it again and say, does it really speak to our business? Is it speaking to our culture? And is it speaking to our people? If it's not, it's time to start thinking, can I do something different? And then your conflict of interest. If I'm in HR, am I allowed to have my HR consultancy? Yes or no? For example, am I allowed to do HR work somewhere else and get paid for it?
Catherine?
Yes.
Yes, for us, it is in the policy, it is allowed, but because you will require time out of work to go and do this particular assignment. So what has been agreed on is that you go do your consultancy and a percentage comes to the organization, which already has been captured in the policy.
Whoa, really? That's so cool. Yes. So how much do you give them?
We give them 40.
40%?
You take 60. Yes, you take 60.
Wow. So if an accountant, if I'm an accountant as well, I can go and do tax returns, yada da da da. And if I earn 100,000, I pay the organization 40K.
Yes, but now it has to be before that is done. Of course, there is the procedure that has to be followed. Which assignment is this? How long is it taking? That kind of thing, so that you just don't walk in and out, that kind of thing, but it is structured in a way.
Oh, fantastic. So that will come out of your organization time. You won't have to take time off and apply for leave.
Yes.
I think
so. When you're on leave, when you're on leave, and you have something that you want to do, that is fine. But mostly in our organization, we have a group called master trainers.
Yeah.
And they engage in even international trainings.
Yeah.
They are engaged by the donors. So when they go and they do this particular job, it takes quite some time out of work. So when they do that, that is now when this policy comes in. But when you're on leave and you want to do your side hustle, that's fine. It has nothing to do with organization. But this particular one is captured in the policy.
Fantastic. We learn every day. It's something that I would like to explore and see, so that people do not just disappear. And when you hear they have disappeared, they've gone to do their own side hustle because they don't understand. They don't get it. Do I declare? Do I not declare? If I declare, what does that mean? Is it within the conflict of interest? Well done, Susan. I think that's really, I've not heard of that, but I think that's something that anybody can borrow. And if it's within the line of business and that's where you guys plug in, I think that's really good. Yeah. Thomas?
Yeah, I was just saying that I also worked at a university, and actually that's the norm. You even make it official. Universities have enterprises, and they have a very clear policy on when you do consultancy. Actually, it's even the same percentage. 60% is given to the consultants. It could be a team or an individual. Then 40% remains with the enterprise. So that now what happens is that employees at the university go looking for business for the enterprise, because it's even easier to get business through the enterprise than as an individual. So I believe that institution must have done some benchmarking with a university, especially University of Nairobi.
Wow, well done. Yeah, good to hear. Good to know. I just hope that it's not that people don't run away to look for business, more doing business development than doing their normal work. You're supposed to be in the HR department providing services to internal customers, and then you're out there bidding for jobs and at the expense of your day-to-day job. But that's I'm sure it's not, Thomas. I'm just saying that some people can get so engrossed in this extra 60% and they neglect. But if you have strong work ethic, I don't think that would happen. Okay. Anybody else? Is it in conflict? Do you think it is?
Catherine?
Yes.
I think if it is, just to follow up what you just said, if it is well structured, it brings some kind of control on how to go about that. And for us, I think the board is so keen on that because the way the donor funding is really going down, and organizations are looking for sustainability projects. So we have a business development desk that really manages that. And if it is well managed, it really brings in resources that help these donor-funded institutions to be sustainable in the coming future. Yeah.
I keep on saying that as long as you're not doing the same business as your organization, then if you're using your talent or your skill to do a consultancy, then you're not in conflict. Let's say you are your organization is in the transport business, you can't go and open a transport business. You'll be in direct competition with your employer. But if you're an accountant and you have a consultancy that provides accounting and financial services, then you're not in direct competition with your employer. So it's important to outline and to make everybody understand what it means to be in conflict of interest. I see that being challenged a lot, and challenged in a way that makes people feel that maybe they're not being fairly heard, or their expectations are not being met, and making it very clear that you cannot neglect your work to follow your side business, you know, and making sure that you also declare that this is what I do. You know, like if you sit in various boards, it's important that you come and say, I'm sitting in this board. Like an organization that I used to work for, you would not be allowed to sit in more than 4 boards, and boards that you couldn't have been chair for more than one of those boards, because being a board chair takes a big responsibility of you, and you have to concentrate. So you can't sit in 4 boards and you are chair in those 4 boards. But after that, then they would say, no, you can't sit in another board. So you had to declare that I've been selected to sit in this board, no matter what kind of a board it was, and sign it off. And every year you're expected to say, are you still in that board? Have you stopped being a member of that board, and stuff like that. And just to know that if you ask for time off to attend board meetings, it was actually given on company's time, you know, because they believe that you developed your leadership skill, you were able to come back and become a better version of yourself at your place of work. So these things are when organizations have them at a different level, you know, let's say I'm giving you time off. If you have a board meeting, please take the day off or take the afternoon off to attend that meeting. Then people are more receptive to declare and to actively join a board, because they know that it's not only helping that organization because you're taking in your expertise, but it's also being looked at very attractively by the organization, because they believe that you're developing a skill. So back to the the strategy. You've said that it's important that you see the bigger picture, and the HR strategy is entirely to provide people-centric solutions. We all say that we are a people-centric organization. I like that term a lot, you know, but sometimes it doesn't translate into what we say, into the practical aspects of it. So it's important for us to look at our approach. What is required? Is it evolving? Is it changing? Are we changing with time? You know, is it time bound? What kind of data are we taking from it? What kind of reports are we submitting to the relevant parties that need to consume those reports, so that we can make sure that the organization is a going concern around people, and our culture is so alive, because then it's a look and feel. When you get into an organization, you can almost, you know, the look and feel. You can almost smell the culture. You know, it's like smelling a good cup of coffee. You know, you come in and the whole place has a good aroma. And that's what we want around the HR strategy, that it's alive, people believe in it, and people do understand it. Because sometimes we just think, oh, you know, this HR strategy is only for HR. You know, have you gone to the organization, to the rest of the departments, and ask, so let me ask you, show me the finance strategy and see how it collaborates. I would like to see it, to see how we collaborate together with my HR strategy. Have you gone to operations, whatever departments you have, and ask them, do you have a strategy for your department? How does it look like? And how we collaborating within ourselves? I think that's an ideal question, especially at senior level or at even peer level. Be curious enough to find out what the other people are doing, because that's the other way that you get to understand the business. Nobody is a keeper of this strategy. you know, and of course someone will be held responsible for implementing it, but all of us should understand the strategy in the organization. That's something else that we find ourselves not doing enough, especially if you are the head of department. You almost think that, well, this strategy is bestowed on me. I'm the one to articulate it. I'm the one to unpack it. I delegate here and there, but everybody should understand it, and everybody should be so aligned with it, and everybody singing from the same tune. So on Monday again, if you've not gone to the other departments and asked, what's your strategy? How does it collaborate with mine? You know, at whatever level you are, find time to go and see where are you at and where are we at, and see how much synergies you will get when you understand the organization strategy while at it. Okay, great. Any question from there? Any feedback? Any rejoiner? Any rejoiner? Okay, so what are policies? HR policies define specific guidelines. We shouldn't even talk about that, and managing its human assets. And sometimes I get caught up because, and I have to stop myself and say, in these seminars, we are all at different levels in terms of our careers. Some of us have just come into the business and they're starting their career. Some of us have already progressed, some of us at senior level. So we want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. So that's why we sometimes say, these seminars, where do we start? And sharing experiences is one of the key things. So at senior level, you might have a lot of information, been and done that. And if you're starting in your career, you might just think, oh, I have to do all these things. It gets easier with time. With practice, it gets easier with time. So when we define what our policies are, never mind whatever level that you are in. So human resource policies are the formal rules and guidelines that businesses put in place to hire, train, assess, and reward the members of its workforce. They include descriptions, policy, principles, rights, and responsibilities for managers and employees. And we had already defined what are some of the policies. So here I would like to ask, who likes to write policies? Who enjoys the writing bit of it? Who likes to write? Who has written? Or only when they are written? When you are forced to write is when you write. Anybody? Who would rather have a consultant helping them?
Personally, I enjoy writing.
Oh, you enjoy writing? Fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so when COVID happened and everybody started working at home, did you write a return to work, or did you write hybrid, or what? During that time, a lot of things came out, and I kept asking, someone please help me with the policy to see how you have worded it and written it. I should have known you by then.
Yeah, but I may not have delved on that specifically, but I thought generally I like writing on what the business is looking at, or improving those that are there, and see how much changes have taken place. So I always make it upon myself to review a policy, perhaps sometimes annually, and see how things are changing into the business. I always look at the business plan yearly and see how various HR policies will also change, and the strategies, obviously, as we develop also a business plan for the year.
Okay, actually, we introduced a very good aspect now of the business plan. So we have policies, we have the strategy, and the business plan. Maybe Nganga, you can just give us some good reference around those three. What follows what keeps changing, and how have you incorporated that to support the business?
Well, I don't know whether I got you correctly, but definitely all businesses are, will develop the annual plans of what they want to achieve, what they want to. I mean, the business is so much into marketing. We are in Coca-Cola, that is. And the main focus is commercial. We are commercially oriented. Marketing and the sales is very key for the business. Of course, it aligns itself to the production, because without the product, you will not sell anything. But that is where the framework is. So, like I've said, that's where the whole thing starts. And when you sit down, you'll come up with some of the HR programs you'd like to articulate. Perhaps, you'll come with various HR programs and align that to the main business. Obviously, it may be important to go back and see what areas in HR are being developed in the year and what are the current existing policies that you like to look at. For example, this year, I've planned for two key things: automation of HR, a review of our current HR software. And the second thing I'm looking at is job evaluation. So that being the milestones I want to achieve, among others, I've looked at our existing performance management plan. I've looked at whether we have the right policies that are going to align themselves with the structures that are there. Because again, the job evaluation is coming to address pertinent issues on reward and management. So this way I've said, I've looked at, that is last year, I've looked at our reward management policy and seen it is not quite competitive. There's what I did the job evaluation, what was done a bit earlier when I joined, I was working here earlier. I learned that nothing has been done until I came back and said, okay, this job evaluation has taken too long, for 15 years. A lot of things have changed. We have shifted to another place since then. The structure that was there before can't fit here, and all these things. So generally, that is the aspect I'm looking at. Even the technology that we used then is no longer applicable. So this will put resources to be able to manage the two. And then I have also put a strategy and a plan on how we are going to implement this in the year. As of course, that will also depend with the business in terms of how we are performing. If money comes through, definitely I'll have an opportunity to implement this. If things happen the other way around, then it will mean I'll have to put a few in abeyance. So everything depends on the commercial aspect. Are we going to get this money? Then if you're going to get this money, we have budgeted. Everything has to fit in the whole totality of the business. So yeah, they are tied up very strongly.
Exactly. Yeah. So they complement, and you can't leave one out over the other. So as you have all these policies that are in place, then if you're coming up with new initiatives, new projects, if they are legislative, if they are best practices, if tied within the business because the business has taken a new direction, then all these things, we have to think about them. And sometimes you have to think them on your feet. If you feel that, like what Nganga is saying, a job evaluation is important for us in after so many years, it's time for us to do it. It has to go into the work plan for that year. And the work plan, a job evaluation will talk into your compensation and benefit structure. It will talk into your job grading structure. So you have to go and see how that fits in. And then you look at the strategy in terms of where are we at in terms of the key skills that we have for our people. If it's around succession, if it's around critical positions, you've references around your strategies for you to be able to make sure that all these are tied in. Some of those big projects that we take up in terms of supporting the HR function will also mean that will require some funding, or you'll have to do a cost aspect analysis around it and give it well in advance for it to be approved. You can't just wake up one day and say, well, I want to do a job evaluation. And when you ask for quotations, you get it in the tune of 5 million and you say, oh, I didn't know it was this expensive, and you have to justify, why do we want to do these projects? What efficiencies are they going to bring to the business, and all that kind of stuff? So there's a lot of thought and there's a lot of work that goes into this. That's why I keep on saying that your ability to formulate these policies, to speak into the business of where we are right now, that they guide the business and they also protect the people, they protect the business as well, cannot be underestimated. It's not just a policy that you develop, you put it there, and then you say, oh, finally, phew, I've finished with it. It's every day you have to look into it. And let me tell you, employees, your handbook can be, your HR manual can be over 100 pages, for example, because it has the forms, it has the process, it has the procedure on how to articulate that policy. But your employee handbook is an abridged version of your HR policies. It's interesting. It's got the popular policies that employees can look at. The only time that, and we see that, and you can agree with me, is that the only time an employee will say, where is the full HR policy on SharePoint or your intranet, is when something has happened to them, or they want to declare as redundant. Which policy is that? And they ask their next door neighbor, which policy, it's on which page? They even ask in the page. They quickly peruse and go there. Oh, they want to take me to a disciplinary meeting. What have I done? Or someone has done something, harassed me, and the grievance policy. Which page and which forms am I going to fill? Something like that. So it is important for you to understand that they must be as up to date as they should be, as they must be in the organization. Because as when someone wants to use them, it's not when you say, oh my gosh, the law changed and we've not even changed the policy. What are we going to do now? You will not be complying. So it's important for us to think about these three things: your work plan for the year, the strategy that you have in place, and the things that you have articulated to do, and the policies which are an ongoing basis. So they help set clear instructions. The business it makes the business very strong inclination to fair work practices and towards standards of corporate governance. The HR department is entrusted with creating useful and ethical processes for betterment of the organization. Can you imagine? You are entrusted to make sure that you come up with policies that are ethical and betterment of the organization. And organization means that it is the people who work there. It is not just the business that we are doing. Yes, we have a business that we are doing, but the betterment of the organization also means that it's the betterment of the people. Any rejoiner? Anyone who has done things differently? Anyone who was caught flat-footed with not having updated their policies and dire straits? Anyone who would like to share? Okay. Let's move on. Okay, so we like to look at the importance, just like any other policy that we create, to ensure that employees' needs are respected and looked after in the organization. The second one is to ensure that employees are receiving fair compensation and proper benefits for their work. The other one is to ensure that it helps address employee problems, complaints, and grievances, and provide a way to solving them. So let's just think about some of the policies that we put in place and some of the things that are in conflict of maybe the country beliefs, traditions, and values. Working in a multinational, some of the things that can be in conflict with, and some of the legislation. And maybe let's talk about something that is hot on the heels around the LGBTQ, around what's our thoughts? What are we going to do? If you're coming from a multinational, how are you implementing that? How have you implemented that in the past? Or you came and said, no, it's not allowed in Kenya, and they let you go scot-free. Okay, fine, no problem. That can slide. It's not accepted in Kenya. Anyone would like to? Or just what's the thought? What can HRs do? What are we voicing? What's our take? What's our position? What should be our position in this matter? Let's try and see what we can say about it. Anyone? There's no right or wrong.
May I share?
Yes.
For us, our preamble, even in our policies, is that one is not going to be discriminated based on so many various things, whether it's gender, age, sexual orientation, socioeconomic level. So that is the preamble, which covers everything. So I think that just goes on. So as long as you're working in the organization, you're not going to be discriminated because of any of those.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just covers everything.
Yeah, it does. So Jane, if someone comes from head office and they come with so and so, hey, Mr. John Other will come and become the sales director. You have expatriates and whatever. And John Other comes with George Other. Mm-hmm. So in the town hall meeting, meet Mr. and Mrs. Other in Kenya. What happens?
That has happened. I mean, we have people who come with they call them partners,
mm-hmm.
and they do come with them. Nobody stops them from coming with them.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I think it's also, I mean, first and foremost, they're not nationals. They're not bound by us. I mean, they're not coming to do any criminal whatever, but they're not stopped from coming. We do have that, by the way. And strangely, I work for an organization that, of course, it's an international organization. So, some of these things are quite sensitive. So even for your spouse, they say your spouse or partner. So we have a number of those. We have people, partners of the same gender. And yeah, life continues, if I should call it that way. We don't get on any benefits because, or treated any different, or miss out on jobs, or I don't know, or disciplined, or I don't know. It's their right. Of course, like everything, your right stops being your right when it infringes in somebody else's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is the only time then your right is not superior to somebody else's right. So you cannot impose and force your belief on somebody else. Yeah. I don't know whether I've answered what you
Yes, you have. Yeah, it's there's a very clear mandate around multinationals, and that's the truth of the matter. Is what we see. It's already been here. We're in the same space, me and you, Jane. We even in another big multinational that I used to work in, they even used to have all these types of communities, as they called it, people from Africa, and they encourage that if you're going to work in other countries, which are away from your home country, you could make those communities and see what you can get a support. You can get support because the cultures are different, how we relate is different. So they had thought ahead of time. The LGBTQ was a very strong community, come one, come all. I used to see all sorts of notices. I don't know, we are doing what, we are doing what. They had a day for themselves, AB other, come with your partner, come with your spouse, come with your children, you know. And of course, working in those, one of the things that was very strong around coming to work in that organization was the onboarding program. You know, very elaborate around diversity and inclusion and how you are to understand and accommodate without feeling that your rights, your beliefs and cultures are being discriminated, or you cannot work around that. And it gave you an opportunity to voice and say, this is my belief. And if I come across this is what I would do. So there was a lot around conscious bias. What do we do when my belief says that I don't ascribe to this kind of behavior and norms in the society? How can I get help and stuff like that? So it became the norm. And some people just say, okay, fine, I'm just here to work. After all, we don't relate on that level, and I'm not going to talk bad about it. Neither should they feel bad about me ascribing to my belief and to my culture. So it was very secular around things, religion, things around people's sexual orientation, things like that. But we know that there are some organizations you'll go to work, faith-based organizations, they will not allow for that. And how do we then accommodate those kind of communities that are now around the world and they have come out to demand for their rights? How do we do that? So it's for people to know, what kind of spaces do I want to plug in? You know, if my faith strongly believes that I should not work in an organization that produces harmful products, for example, cigarettes, you know, alcohol, then you should not go and work there. If you know that you will struggle going for devotion in the morning in a Christian-based organization, then don't find yourself working there, because you will go and start antagonizing them. So there is a responsibility between the person applying for the job to go and work in those kind of organizations where you believe that you will feel bad or your rights and beliefs and traditions are going to be infringed upon, and also the organization also to make sure that if you are going to join, if you're planning to join, there is full disclosure, and they make sure that you understand where they're coming from. I think that has really continued to work for multinationals, continues to be difficult. And of course, knowing that good jobs are few and far between, people will take them and sometimes struggle in them. But again, I keep on saying you only live once, so you have to make those very deliberate choices around where you want to work. I saw, what's his name? Thomas, you had your hands raised. Feel free to unmute and give us your experiences.
I was just saying that I work in a public organization, and my feeling is that there is no such policy in government in terms of sexual orientation and what have you. So I was even thinking that if a person was to declare now a person of the same gender as a spouse, then I have a feeling that that could even result into some sort of disciplinary process, because we do not have such a policy in public organizations.
Yeah, and because based on our cultures, our beliefs as a country, we will not have that. It's something that is even frowned upon. If we smell or if we hear, on the grapevine around the coffee pot, oh, this person, the gossip mill is rife with you, and stuff like that. But what can we do? Do we just let it slide? Do we ignore it, sweep it under the carpet and say it? Should we come and say we do not ascribe to it and make a policy?
I happen to have worked in an institution, I'll not mention the institution, where a head of department was suspected to be gay. But we used to be harsh. We used to be in harsh tones. So people will talk about it, but good enough. I guess people used to interact with that head of department, but they were suspicious about him. So they could not even go drinking with him and what have you. And there were lots of stories about him, but no policy, nothing. And no even disciplinary action was being taken against him because there was no evidence, but people were suspicious about him. The way he dresses, the way he talks, you see. So that's my experience.
So Thomas, even if you were to have a disciplinary process against him, what would be the allegations? I'm just thinking, what would be the allegations? Well, what kind of discussions would we have? I don't know. So let's hear more what we would do around the public Kenya as a country. Yes. Ishia? Ishai?
Thank you, Madam Catherine.
Yeah.
Yes, I work for a public institution,
Mm.
and we are very keen on issue to do with gender mainstreaming.
Mm.
But when it comes to this particular topic of LGBT, I think we have not been able to address it because the Kenyan constitution, the Kenyan culture, just like Thomas has alluded, actually does not allow this. So yes, it is a new area. I've worked elsewhere. I've worked also in UK, where like in UK, it's quite the norm. It is okay for them because their law, the RAD, allows that. But for Kenya, I think we have a long way to go. I've heard you talking about inclusion in terms of worker diversity, but our cultural beliefs and our constitution that guides our roles in the country, and of course even the human resource policies and procedures that we have does not allow that, and we cannot do anything that is beyond the Kenyan constitution. Thank you.
Very true. I totally agree that there's nothing we can do because the constitution is the ultimate law that we have in the country. It's such a catch-22 because then on one side we are there at the corner knowing that these people exist in our organizations, public, private, in your own families. We cannot run from that, and of course it's very heavy around our beliefs as a country, traditions. It's totally, there's no one thing that is going to say this is how we are going to support it and this is how it's going to be done. It will continue being a very heavy topic. What can we do? The other day they were told you can go and register. What does that mean? The Supreme Court, which is the ultimate, the apex court of the country, give them some rights. It's a bit I don't know what to say. Jen?
Sorry, I was speaking to a muted phone.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I think there are two issues here.
yeah.
When we talk about the Constitution is very clear on lack of discrimination on all the factors I mentioned. So you cannot maybe say you're not going to employ somebody because they ascribe to being gay. It's very clear that you cannot discriminate on that. What is against the law is the act of homosexuality itself, the act, okay? Which is very contradictory if you ask me, because I don't think anybody is going to be doing the act in an open space and nobody comes to find out what we are doing in our houses or in people's houses. But that's not said. That's why I was kind of like you, wondering in an organization where I know somebody ascribes to and says they are gay, why would I institute a disciplinary action? What have they violated? What did they do wrong according to the organization? What I can understand is, yes, there are rights that may not accord to them. You will not cover, for example, this is my spouse or my partner. They will not be on the medical scheme because in Kenya, you will not say my wife is another woman, for example, and we put them in your scheme. But just to come back on the preamble of the Constitution is against discrimination. So you're not going to get, for example, government services because I'm gay. I'm going to still get government services. Yeah. So I think just that clarity and the separation is important to note.
Yeah. Thank you, Jane, and thank you, everyone. It will continue being very difficult. And unfortunately, everybody is looking upon HR people to give direction. Even the MD in this juncture will come and say, HR, what do you know about this and how should we be doing? We say we do not discriminate, but how are we going to bring it out? And what can we do? The mute button is going to be, everybody's saying that the mute button is my best friend right now around this topic. But you can't be mute for too long. We need to start thinking, what can we do? My right ends where yours begins. How are we going to support this group, this community? I'm not saying that we do it tomorrow, but I'm telling you sooner than later, I think HR people need to come together around a table and have a position statement, even if it's a holding statement, as we look into it. It's going to be difficult. I'm not saying it's easy. Unfortunately, even me, my mute button is very strongly pressed. But there's the thing about Constitution, the rights, there's the act in itself, there's accepting the people, there's my own belief as Catherine, as a Christian, then this is something that I should not even think about. There's the fact that I can be, in my family, someone can be there, and how do we feel about it? There's too many moving pieces, unfortunately. And that's why it is important for HR practitioners at this level to interact with their peers whose organizations, who work in multinationals, and these things have already been referenced. And there's a framework around it, and how just to start having that discussion and having that knowledge around it. So we don't seem naive and we don't take a position around it. How do we support people? Even if you are one of them, let's say one of us here had a different sexual orientation. How would you like to be treated? And we can have this discussion until the cows come home. They'll never come home. We might not be able to, whatever, but we must all agree as HR people that this is a hot topic that we need to discuss, and how best to support the organizations while at it, taking into perspective the people that we work in, because it's people, they're made of flesh and blood, and we will have a lot of expectations and look upon us to be able to drive that conversation. It would be interesting if you say the next town hall meeting, we would like to hear your views about LGBTQ, and hear what people will say. What are people's views, and start thinking of how to craft these policies, maybe in a better space to be able to have those kind of conversations. I totally understand maybe from public institutions, it would be very difficult to drive that conversation. But at a department level, the 10 of you, the 50 of you, have you started having those conversations in an informal way for you to have that? Great. Feel free to unmute and let us know what you think or what you have done in your organizations. So the importance again is to ensure proper training and development opportunities are presented to employees to meet the needs of the organization. Every organization needs to remain agile, it needs to remain competitive. The training opportunities that are given to employees must be geared towards improving the efficiencies of the organization. So we provide trainings that are relevant to the business, and sometimes also builds the career of the person, because we just don't want you to think, oh, the only trainings we'll give you are the ones that are so business oriented. But how about also thinking, what are the aspirations of Catherine? If Catherine wants to become the CEO, what kind of trainings should we be earmarking for her? What kind of coaching, what kind of mentoring, what kind of support system? And training is not just sending someone for a 3-day training in a nice exotic hotel. Training takes place in many forms and shapes and sizes. And I hope that you are relating with all that and you're putting into practice those kind of ways of people can get trainings. I see organizations having good training academies where they have put in-house learnings, and they even say that you need to have like a certain number of trainings done, and self-training, self-driven trainings, so that it forms part of your key objectives for that year. I think that works very well for continuous development and people understanding how the business functions, but also training, taking the self-initiative to better themselves. Even reading, having a book club for people who love to read all sorts of genres and stuff like that. That is training. It's encouraging a culture of self-development, because when you read, I think it's a good thing. You just pick things that are of importance and you're able to put them into practice. They're essential as it ensures the eligible employees are getting allocated holidays, vacations for the year due, and the various types of trainings that we have. It is considered vital to help maintain discipline in an organization. Any question? Anything else you would like to add around the importance of HR policies? If you're doing CHRP, you can take these notes and go and I don't know which topic is under this, and you will get an A. So I keep on saying these are some of the good things around these CHRP trainings, because they also help you if you're doing CHRP. The notes are rich, okay? So components of a HR policy. Let's talk about the components of a HR policy. Well, what are some of the key elements for components of a HR policy? Let me take it back. You already saw. What are the key components for people who are planning to develop them? And when we started, someone said that I have this project that I need to look at my local policies, and a new organization has come in. So how do we marry those together? What are some of the components that are key when you're making the policies? How do we formulate them? Yes? Ishia? You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Catherine. I think policies will depend with the type of institutions. But in a generic institution, I'm trying to see a continuum of activities that start all the way from recruitment up to the exit. This will be things to do with the recruitment, things to do with, like in a public institution, there will be things to do with the recruitment, induction, maybe things to do with the salaries, things to do with the leave management. And again, most of us being in the performance contracting with the government, we also bring the issues of now like gender mainstreaming. We can also touch things on discrimination like HIV, code of ethics and code of conduct, trainings. You will have also like transport policies within still HR. There are quite a number, and of course, even the retirement, compensation, sanctions. Yeah, I think there are quite a number.
Okay,
But basically, continuum of recruitment to exit, all those activities that are involved in between.
Exactly, yeah. From the components, and you've put it very well, from the time we onboard you to the time we separate, all those other policies in between there, and how do we formulate them to make sure that you understand them and they are life and they speak to the life cycle of the employee while they are still there. I think there's one policy that of course it could be around diversity and inclusion, is the area of people living with disability. You know, are we doing much more? I think it's an area that is very, very key and now should be taken with a lot of importance and emphasis that should be put around that. It's not just saying that we welcome everybody, but around areas, people living with disability. The law even says that 5% of our workforce should be people living with all sorts of disabilities. But if I ask this, the 40 of us on this workshop, how many of what percentage of our organization, of our workforce are people living with disability? Ishiha, you had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Kate, I think, yes, just like you had said, we are conforming to performance contracting. 5% of our employees, they're supposed to be people who are able differently. But at the same time, if you look even at their retirement age, they don't retire at 60. The public service manual 2016 is quite clear. Their retirement age is 65 years of age. At the same time, it is a statutory requirement that we do disability mainstreaming in terms of our policies, recruitment. I think the challenge that you have been getting when it comes to recruitment, like in my case in a university in most cases, you specialize in trying to get a certain set of skills. For example, you are looking for a lecturer who is a neurosurgeon, and this does not come easily. But how we do it, we make sure that we subscribe to that disability portal, we post our jobs there, and also we have that disclaimer of equal opportunity employer, so that we leave it open. We have really been trying areas where we can get those people. We are really trying to encourage them. As we put our advert on the newspapers or website, we also put in their portal. Thank you.
Oh, well done, Yakishiha. Someone else? Around people living with disability, what are you doing? What's the number of people that you have? Is it getting to the 5%? Why do you shy away from bringing them on board? Anything that we can do differently? Not just having a policy, but putting it into practice. Anyone? Bringing anything? Okay. I think it's important not to lose sight of some of the laws that we have in this country that the Disability Act requires employees to have like a certain 5%, make sure that you provide all the tools and equipment that they need, work very closely with national councils of people living with disability for us to be able to do what? For us to be able to understand and how they can support you. They're very supportive, by the way. So their portal is free. Go in there, put your job adverts. You might just be very surprised to see the kind of response you will have to your job ads. So the next time you have that opportunity that you're employing, please make sure that you are able to do what? You're able to get to that to that quota. And I know the government is very deliberate in terms of making sure that that is done. So formulation of your policy is very easy. It's that they should include elements needed for ease of revision, for effective implementation. If your policies are not correctly worded or they're ambiguous, then it's very difficult for you to implement effectively and for people to be able to understand them. People will interpret them differently. Everybody will interpret them the best way they know how or what suits them. They should be drafted in a carefully researched policy language and clear explanation. Of course, that says that what should we do is to make sure that the language that we use, whatever language, sometimes English being the default language, some countries, whatever country you come from or whatever business you do, that is the default language, they should be, you should use it in the language and avoid of jargon. Should address important management concerns and support your organization, what your organization represents. I think the ability to have your policies branded with your culture and speak to that in a very personal way is where sometimes we lose it. Because when you look at a recruitment policy, it won't be any different. We know that you will be expected to put up adverts. You'll be expected to have a short list. You'll be expected, you'll be expected to do reference checks. You'll be expected to give an offer. I mean, the recruitment policy worldwide will be the same. But how do I differentiate my policy? How do I differentiate all my policies? That's always the big question, because sometimes when you work with consultants, they just take one policy and do what? And give you, because they've done this so many times. All that they are doing is removing the last name of the organization they supported, developing policies, and put your name and put the name without coming to understand what is what are the needs of this organization? What is their business? What is their brand? What is their culture? What kind of strategy do they have, so that it really speaks and represents? I keep on saying your work, even the kind of work you produce, is a brand in itself. If I pick this paper and say, oh, this looks like Catherine's work, this is, it should bear the real bespokeness, if I can emphasize that. But if I just take one policy, it's the same in this other whatever. So where do we differentiate? How do we make ourselves different? Because the policies that we develop are the ones that really helps us become very different and become ahead of competition. But if it's just a standard policy that doesn't give the oomph, let me put it like that, then it's just as good as just having it and checking the box. So make sure that it really speaks to your culture and what you ascribe to. Should be cognizant of the current laws that we know, budget requirements. That's important, that you're able to meet the budgetary constraints of developing any policy. For example, if you're developing a policy of sick leave, for example, what does the policy of sick leave in the country state? How many days on full pay and how many days on half pay? Before we let you go? How many?
7.
7. 7 days on full pay, 7 days on half pay. Someone else?
30 days on full
30
pay.
days.
And 15 days with half pay.
Someone else? Fatma, where did you get that one of 30 days and 15 days?
Yeah, from our policies, I guess from labor laws.
So the current Employment Act 2007 says 7 days on full pay and 7 days on half pay. But I forget the other name of the other act that has 30 days on
of wages, the regulations of wages and blah blah whatever it is.
Yes, that one, guidance order and something. It's on 30 days and whatever. So which takes precedent? All of us here. And I'm sure maybe we have some different, these 30 days and 7 days don't apply to maybe the organizations that you come from. I'm sure maybe you have better days on full pay and better days on half pay. Someone else? So we should take precedent.
I guess the one that favors the employee.
What favors the employee? So 30 days.
Yes.
Okay, someone else? Someone else was also speaking at the same time.
Yes, I would just agree. Whatever is more favorable.
Employee, someone else? Okay, so yeah, of course, it's whatever is more favorable to the employee should always be the one that is is referenced in the policy. So 30 days on full pay, 15 days on half pay. I know also taking into consideration empathy around issues of illness. People will want to make sure that they do what? They get to have better days in terms of what needs to be done. So we normally have, like in organizations, I see 90 days on full pay and 90 days of half pay before we have that kind of discussions. So even around why I pose that there is because budget requirements, you have to think of if I am going to improve or revise a policy, they might have some budgetary constraints. And is that going to be allowed by the organization? Can the organization be able to support and afford that? Even moving one leave day. Let's say we have 21 leave days and we want to say, well, we are a good organization. We are going to start from next year giving 22 leave days. So 22 leave days, what does it mean for 22 leave days? That one day, you must cost it and take it to the board and say, if we are all going to be retrenched, one full day, it's going to cost this amount of money. And then the organization will come and say, oh, that we can accommodate, we can be able to afford, let's give it. And of course, by the time you're communicating, it's already been approved. And by the time you're communicating, it's really good news. Who wouldn't want an extra day to their leave days? Okay. So, and of course, making sure that if you have a union, collective agreements also are taken into consideration that affect your organization. If you work in an unionizable environment, those laws and regulations must be they must be cognizant and they must be in tandem with the collective bargaining agreements. Should consider how issues have been dealt with in the past, current size of the workforce, and intent of the policy. You know, what has been, and that's why I keep on saying data does not lie. Let's always make sure that we are looking into the data. Data is supporting what we have, what policies we're going to implement. Are you going to the ground? How are you supporting people who are working in the field? Are you able to go and say, well, people say it's very hot. Let's only be able to, let's start off early and knock off early because the weather elements in this place are too much. Instead of saying, well, we are an 8 to 5 organization, but you don't consider the locations, the geographical locations that you are in that in the organization. So it's important for you as a HR person to go to the ground to make sure that you listen and you experience the real situation on the ground for you to be able to develop policies that are fitting and befitting to the people who are working in the organization, even if they are even if you have different geographical locations. Okay, great. Any question? Anything that you have done in the past around formulation of policies in the area of making sure that they are bespoke, or it's one size fits all? Anything that you have done differently to make sure that they really speak into your culture? Anyone who would like to share?
Catherine?
Yes.
So on the matter of leave days, I think for us, I would say we do it differently. And it has been categorized into two. We have the management level and then the other staff. So we do 27 days for the other staff, and for management, we do 30 days with full pay. And also on top of that, they are given a leave allowance, which is 100% of their basic when they are going on leave. And all this is made possible at the design. You talked of budget requirements. At the design stage, when developing the proposals, we have managed to factor that at the design, because it can't be possible. If you don't factor it, you cannot implement it.
Exactly.
So when we factored in and it is approved at the design stage, that is when now the implementation comes in. And it has been a plus, I would say, for us, because it's a benefit that the employees are happy with.
Exactly.
So
It's
I would say that is how we do. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
a very attractive benefit, I must say. 27 days, 30 days, and then full month's pay. Whoa. Susan, all of us, can we come and work with you? It's very, very well welcomed. Yeah. So why 30 days for senior staff and 27 days for
the
other staff members?
I think looking at the engagements maybe that the management have, doing more of a strategy and that kind of thing. That is why we decided just to add 2 days more. Yeah, but also looking at that, we are complying with the law already.
Yeah.
So I don't see it becoming an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a management saying that says rank comes with responsibility and privileges, and that's the truth of the matter. The MD will get a brand new car, they'll have a driver, other people don't have that. We are cognizant that there are some privileges that will not be accorded to everybody, that based on seniority and stuff like that. But I always like to ask, so why would I do things differently, very differently, for a group of people and not another group of people? I'm not saying that that's whatever. That happens a lot, different medical covers for senior management team, different medical cover for the other employees. Is there a reason behind it? Apart from me getting away of telling people when they come to my office, so why is this different? Why can't I get a Bupa cover while I'm getting a local cover? Why is this, And I say, well, they have more responsibilities, and also they have got better privileges, But again, then you say, well, everybody works, the same rights that you have in this organization are the same rights that I have there. It's something that I like people to think around about it. There's no right, there's no wrong. But if it's going to cause some mamas at the coffee pot, it's important to have an explanation to make sure that that is being done. You get what I mean? I don't know whether anybody has had those mamas and what you did, or you just let it slide. Of course, you just say, well, but we are paying you, you are not disadvantaged and stuff like that. If we are saying that we are communicating, people deserve explanations around our policies and what we are implementing, then we should have an explanation for everything, so that if we are saying that we are one big happy family, our policies on our policies on diversity and inclusion are very alive. What can we do there? So I like to pose that as a challenge for us to be able to do that. Anybody who has had that, and what have you done?
I like when we started this discussion, we said that there should be a link between the HR policy and the HR strategy. And there is what we call positive discrimination. Now, in terms of the benefits, in terms of salary, like you said, that I cannot have the same salary as the managing director. You see, in strategy, in terms of attracting executives, you need to have attractive benefits and what have you, so that you can attract and retain them. Because these are people with unique skills that you need in the organization. So if their benefits are better, then you'll be in a position to retain them, as opposed to people with the skills that are common and are very easy to get from the market. So my belief is that this is a strategy to ensure retention of executives in an organization.
I like that term, positive discrimination. Yeah, it's true. And that will be the truth of the matter, that at a certain level, we will have privileges so that we can attract, we can retain. It's the world order, unfortunately, that there will be even written down around, this is how the senior management team is going to be remunerated. These are the benefits. These are the kind of bonuses that they are going to fetch. And sometimes those bonuses are so mind-boggling, but they are seen to be the drivers of the business. And if they do not do that, then we are not in a position for us to be as a going concern. So some of those discussions, as much as possible, should be out in the open. That's what I keep on saying, knowing what it is so that people do understand, okay, fine, these people get this kind, whatever, but it's not shrouded in mystery that we try and hide them. When we try and hide them, that is when people feel, well, what are they hiding? What else are they hiding? You know, I've done consultancy for an organization or organizations, and we know that they have two payrolls. They have two payrolls. Why you have two payrolls, I do not know, because the policy is very clear on compensation and benefits. The payroll is administered like this. This is the workflow of the payroll. Then all of a sudden you find yourself having two payrolls. And when I ask, they say, oh no, because these are senior people, they are the owners of the business, we want to whatever. So I keep on saying, okay, fine. Either you are trying to hide away from the taxman, or you are trying to hide away from full disclosure, you know. And then let's try, if you're saying that policies are transparent and should speak to the nature of the business, we should be able to do that as much as possible. So it's still really work in progress. Thank you for that. Any question? Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Yeah.
I wanted to say something. That said, there are some things that we should avoid, because they might not now be positive. They might be negative. For example, in some organizations, like you said about the payroll, you could see things such as grading structures, that management has a different grading structure from operational staff. Even the aspect of leave, I guess these are things that it can be equal across board. It's not, because when a person needs to rest, it's across board. So there is a place where I found there was different leave days, and we tried to harmonize. And in a way, because I was dealing with the union was very happy, because now they felt that they were, at least it's something that they have gained. So we should try as much as possible to remove in our policies things that will impact negatively in terms of achieving organizational goals.
Yeah, as much as possible if we can. And people will always feel much better around, oh, all animals are equal. That and the Animal Farm, everybody should read Animal Farm from time and again, all the time. All animals are equal, but others are more equal than others. It doesn't work, especially if you have a unionizable environment. But there are some things which are pretty clear, and you can be able to equalize. Some of course, again, we have talked about attracting the best talent for us to be able to know what's happening. I mean, to get the best people in the market. So work in progress, but right for discussion. So how do you draft a policy? I've seen someone who's saying that they are absorbing everything that is being said here. That is important. That is why we are here. Already said some people might have these people at their fingertips, so it's more of a refresher and coming to share their experiences. Thank you, everybody who's tuned in here. So following some of the guidelines for drafting a policy, and we know the policy name, what's the name of the policy? Those are no-brainers. I think it would be things that are very well articulated, effective date, the revision, the version of that policy, approval status, who approves the policy, is it important for it to be approved, who has the authority to approve it, the references, the purpose of the statement, the main policy statement, defining the key concepts and terms of the policy, eligibility and the scope, positions of the organization, responsibility implementing and monitoring the policy, procedures for carrying out the policy. And this is how a good policy is actually structured. I guess the meat and the crux of the matter are eligibility around procedures for carrying out the policy. That is where, the real writing comes into. And that's where we say at this point, it needs to be as clear as day and night, very bespoke to the organization. What does this policy serve? So that when everybody picks it, they can be able to see it's well written, it's well documented, and it's actually has no gaps in referencing with other policies as much as possible. And that's why it is important for us to be able to have a policy that the policies which are in tandem with other departments as well. Take a policy like in finance. Finance will be a policy that is very closely collaborates a lot with HRs, maybe in the area of interest, isn't it? That you are given some money to do an activity or to travel, and then in finance, maybe they say when you come back from your travel, please make sure that you account for your interest within maybe 7 days. On the HR policy, it says travel will be advanced to you, stuff like that. And maybe you come and say within 14 days, you must be able to get back to finance or surrender your interest to finance within 14 days. So those two policies are not talking, are not in tandem. So that's why if there are policies that are closely related in an organization, you must be able to talk with that department and make sure that they're aligned. The standard operating procedures for all policies must be able to be aligned with each department so that there is no disconnect where you say, well, I didn't retire it but the HR policy, I follow the HR policies, the one that guides me as an employee in the organization. And then these other people in finance, they're saying, we will deduct your money we'll ask HR to deduct money from you because you have not done that. So it's important that that is done. So the writing of the policies, procedures for carrying out the policy must be in tandem and they must be aligned within the organization. Any question? Who approves the policy? Approval of the status? Ideally, who should approve the policies?
The board.
The board, Someone else in your organization, what happens? Who approves them? Is she here?
Madam Catherine, in our institution, we have the council.
The council is the one that approves. So if you are quickly putting up a new policy or you are revising a policy, do we have to wait for the board to see it or the council to see it or whoever approves them for it to?
Sometimes like the council, whenever we are doing the policies, there is that clause on the revision. But at the same time, we also put that clause that it can also be revised on need basis.
Yes.
Definitely, we have the subcommittees in the council. Like if it's like HR policy, we have the HR subcommittee that will meet quarterly. Where we have a very pressing issue, it can be done administratively, forwarded to them for approval, for adoption and approval. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So what we are saying around approval status should not be so stifled not to support the organization to move forward. If there's an urgent policy that needs to be put in place, then the approval policies must be easy for us to be able to navigate, so to meet the needs of the organization. But making sure that everybody who is in the value chain of approving policies, understanding where we are, must be kept informed. Must be kept informed. We can't just have a policy. And then when the policy is ready, how do we announce it? How do we make sure that people do understand? That is something different that people, what we do sometimes is just say, oh, the HR policy on recruitment has been updated, and we send it out. What is the perfect way? Nearly perfect. I know nothing can be perfect, but what's the most ideal way to communicate a revision of a policy or even introduction of a new policy to the entire organization?
I guess, because you see, policy making, like in public organizations right now, involves public participation. So employees will be involved. That is, employees, at times even it involves the public. So in a way, employees are already aware that there is a process that is ongoing in terms of formulation of the policy. So when it gets approval, in most cases in government, it is by the board, and then the same is now signed by the managing director, who is a member of the board. Then the ideal situation to communicate the policy would be through sensitization. That's the ideal way, other than maybe writing a memo to members and telling them that a policy has been approved. That could be the first part. But now, maybe in the same memo, you could now invite various departments of the organization for sensitization on that particular policy. A briefing sort of, so that they are aware, and then you highlight the most important elements of that policy. My thinking.
Exactly. Yeah. Very good thinking, and that's how we should ban. Dan, anybody else? I think we should also talk about where you implemented and it didn't work well. What were some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges that we face in implementing HR policies, formulating them, anchoring them in the business? Let's talk about some of those challenges, please, as well, before we go into the steps of developing a HR strategy. Just to wrap it up, anyone? What challenges have you faced and how have you surmounted them? Anybody? Or they've just worked. You've been lucky enough to make sure that everything is working. Anybody who'd like to share with us when it failed miserably and how you picked yourself up and moved on? Okay. 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 I think it's not ideally is when maybe you have you're working with the union. Sometimes there could be resistance. There could also be resistance when you think this is a good policy, we need to formulate it or develop it. There are no budgets. Again, if there's no buy-in from top management to be able to understand why we are doing this, there's resistance, there is no real ownership around it. You feel as if you're just walking alone, you know, swimming upstream, and nobody is really supporting you. When HR policies are there and people are not internalizing them the way they should, there's a lot of gaps, you know, loops and hoops, you know, and people say, well, this policy is not well. You thought that you had written it correctly and it serves the purpose, but every time there's a miscalculation. You know, people are always complaining. The recruitment seems to be shrouded in a lot of mystery we don't understand. And we go back, then people are not adhering to what needs to be done. So you find yourself always having to explain yourself and having to do what? To make amends for people, which is which you feel bad about as a person. So there is important for total buy-in when you are formulating policies. You first look into the needs of the organization, why you are doing it, and then after that, making sure the people who are going to help you. You know, sometimes it's good to ask people from various departments to give their views, even in the revision of a policy. How do you think? What do you think? This is what we would like to add. This is what we are thinking of removing. Do you think it is ideal? Do you think it's going to support the business? Do you think it's going to be welcomed by the people who work in this organization? So always think about the larger stakeholders who are going to consume the policy, and think about doing a test run before formulating or before revising the policy. Always a very, very good thing for you to be able to do that. Okay. So I know time is running, and let's quickly dive into the area of HR strategy, you know. And we said, you know, the HR strategy is really the framework that gives life into the policy, what you intend to do in tandem with supporting the organization. These are the key activities that we will be doing. And every year then you have a work plan to articulate the things that you referenced in your HR strategy. And I said on Monday, go to different departments and ask, can I see your strategy, and what does it look like? Is it supporting your department? How does it collaborate with our HR strategy? Important. And then again, from time to time, look at the organization strategy and see how it is helping. Your HR strategy is helping get to the things that were put in the organizational strategy. Sometimes we seem to have a disconnect that once the organizational strategy has been developed, has been signed off 5 years, and we just don't go back to it. No reason for it, because everybody is busy until we come to say, let's evaluate. And sometimes we even call consultants to help us see whether we were able to whatever. So another organization said, this is not working. This 5-year plan that people put 5 years. I think 5 years is a good time to have a strategy. But there's been now discussions around, is really 5 years the ideal way? what is ideal? So they said, we'll have a 1-year strategy. We know what the organization is all about. We truly believe in this business. We'll have a strategy for 1 year that, 12 months, we are working around it. And is it going to work? And it's very brave, I must say. We are going away from those 5 years, what it is. We know the knack of our business, we know the backbone, but these 5 years, I think we lose sight of it. So let's make it 1 year and let's see how it's going to work. So it means that everybody must be so plugged in, because at the end of the financial year, we are going to be taking full stock of what it is. So it means that it meant that everybody had to readjust after the 5 years to start the 1 year. They had already started talking about the 1 year strategy, and they said, we've talked about it for a long time. Once this 5-year strategy is over, we are going to start looking at only 1 year strategies, because we understand. So a bit of resistance, as you can imagine, because we are creatures of habit. We don't like change too much, but they've actually now implemented it and they are working towards it. Very brave. So back to steps of developing a HR strategy. The thing is to create, and we all know, how do I create a strategy? Is to look at the SWOT analysis. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities? And what are the strengths and threats? And that's the basis of us being able to formulate a good strategy. So the same, your strengths as an organization, entirely driven from a people perspective. What are the key strengths? What are some of the weaknesses that you see from your internal perspectives? What are the opportunities that portend to your business, and what are some of the threats that are there? And that could be taken from the premise of the data that you have in the past, what you would like to see in the future, and the current situation that you have on ground. I don't know why my steps to developing a strategy are not coming through, but I can try and say that, so in terms of steps to develop the strategy, apart from just looking at your SWOT and analysis, it's important for you to understand the business and its objectives, very important. And for us to be also to evaluate the employee skill sets. Well, what kind of skill sets do we have in the organization? For us to be able to apply, develop existing employees, assess the talent strategy that we have in the organization. What kind of turnover have you had in the past, and what kind of turnover do you want to have in the future? We all know that we want to have almost zero turnover, but people will move, and people will move for different reasons. People might also leave the organization because of different circumstances. You could lose someone through death, you could lose someone through retirement, someone can go because of medical grounds. So those are different areas of turnover. But the turnover where you get a resignation, where are people leaving your organization? That is somewhere that you need to plug in and understand. The turnover where people are leaving because of multi-practices around things that are against the organization, then are your policies addressing those kind of terminations? Because then you should go back to the policy and say, I have had 4 people leaving because of malpractices, we've terminated them. What is the policy not addressing? And maybe gives you a good opportunity to do that, So in terms of developing your strategy, you must look into all this. Creating awareness and having a policy statement. You must also understand the vision and the vision of the organization, and finally making sure that the strategy is being evaluated from time to time. So when you have all those elements, speaking into the function of HR, looking at the vision and mission of the organization, making sure that you understand the kind of talent that is required in this organization, and also preempting the skill sets that you will need in this organization. It gives you a good basis for you to come and start preparing your strategy, And what is a good thing? Is it first to let the organization strategy be completed, done and dusted, and then you prepare your HR strategy? It's a question to all of us. Or then when you feel, of course, if there is not one and you need to have a HR strategy, there's no question about it. You need to develop it. But let's say you're developing, the 5-year plan is over. Should you wait for the new plan to be developed and then you prepare your HR strategy? Do you prepare them in tandem, or me, I know this strategy is coming to an end in 2023. I should start developing mine media. How do you develop your HR strategy? And if you're also working within different time, different HQs, how do you marry all this together? Someone, please share.
They run concurrently.
They run concurrently. How do they run concurrently? Nganga.
Well, the business strategy is all about the business in totality in terms of the key aspects of the business. But you cannot have a complete business strategy without incorporating some elements of HR strategy. In other words, it's all key stakeholders involved, including the HR manager, if he's the head of the HR, to incorporate what are the key HR strategies that you would like to see them in the overall business plan. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah. Someone else? Someone else? How you've worked it in the past, what has been, what you learned, how you've been able to support that. I like what Kanga says. They all work in tandem, concurrently, because when you're developing the organization strategy, every stakeholder, all parts of the business will be represented to make sure that they incorporate and they support the business. So it's a good framework. In fact, sometimes you just need to borrow and now go and put reference exactly what are some of the things that you need to pay close attention to be able to come back and fit into the organizational plan. This is what we say. This is what we did. So it's no brainer. They work in tandem, and you already know as a department, what are some of the things that we really want to work towards? What are some of the things that we have had? What are some of the things that have held the business and we need to support going forward? So they work very well in tandem. By the time you're coming from that strategy and it's being unveiled, you almost have your HR strategy in place. If you don't have one, never mind, and it's never too late. Just go and check on what is in your organizational strategy and come and formulate your HR strategy, and you're good to go. I mean, in fact, if anything, you will get a lot of support from management and your HR team for you to be able to develop that. And as long as it aligns to the overall strategy, gives you a good framework to have your yearly work plan, then break it down into quarterly work plans, evaluate them, and to see what milestones you're making, what are some of the challenges that you're facing, so that you're able to change the course if at all the challenges are really affecting the business. So a few tips in implementing the HR strategy effectively are involve all stakeholders. We've said that know your budget. There's no way that you're even going to ask that let's ask someone to be able to support us in doing a HR strategy. Even if they come from outside, we will still need all these things. So I keep on saying you're the one who knows the business. Some of these things you don't even need consultants to come and help you. Of course, it is good to have someone who's guiding you so that you keep towards the time frame and to bring in a freshness, and maybe they're experts in that area. But the truth of the matter, the contribution, the final product will have been developed by yourselves. You know, the consultant might help you put it together. in a nice way, you know, in a way that, wow, when you look at this strategy, it's so well-meaning, it makes a lot of sense, it's very colorful or whatever it is, but those things, a good consultant will stretch you and make sure that they are really coming from you. It's now just helping you put maybe pen into paper. That's the whatever. So once internally, I keep on saying, let's do it, because now we've already gotten maybe the support. We should be the ones doing our own internal strategies instead of asking other people to come and support us. Of course, you'll need a budget. That's important that you put a budget together, know your budget, what has been approved, what has been proposed, and making sure that that has been approved, because there's no way that you will need some money and then you say, oh, it was going to cost this amount of money. And when you know, you won't get it until maybe 2 years from now. So what are some of the low-lying fruits that you can have for you to be able to articulate your strategy and to develop your strategy? Okay, please feel free to stop me. Remember the basics. Culture, it's a strategy for breakfast, you know, that start from the culture. Even if you have a very good strategy, there's no way you'll be able to administer it if your culture is not right. And culture forms the basis of everything. Once we have a good culture, we're able to have a good way of relating with each other. Then from there, everything falls into place. And I think the first thing that falls into place is really having a competitive nature among ourselves. A competitive nature means that we are so alive to performance in this organization. This is how performance looks like, because we want to be known as the best team, you know, and that talks very easily into how to contracting of performance, like in the government, you know, they have performance contracting. Internally, even if you are setting objectives, the objectives that are so aligned to the culture, they align to the business, but you also given continuous feedback. So this area of performance, I keep on saying, is really the glue that holds the organization. And for us to have a strong performance culture that speaks into everything else, we cannot leave out culture. Once the culture is in place, people just naturally perform. And you will see it, that I love what I do and I am going to give it my best because the culture is ideal. Then everything else that supports performance becomes very easy. You come and say, oh, people work hard, they are fully engaged. How about us doing a job evaluation to see where we are in the market? It's not necessarily to say that we will need, maybe when we do a job evaluation, of course, you have an end game, is to say, where do I lie in the market? If I want to be a 75th percentile company, if I go to the market, do I feel that I have the muscle to be able to get there? If I'm a 25th percentile organization, I understand why I am there. Am I upping my game to 50th percentile? So there are many things, and people understanding why we are doing a job evaluation. But I'm telling you, once you get performance management system working in your organization, everything else tends to fall into place. Your ability to provide the necessary trainings, the compensation, the leaves, everything else is around your performance, because people have already understood what they're expected to do. Okay. Again, that's what I was saying, do not overlook administrative responsibilities. Compliance violation will derail any plan, no matter how grand it is. You know, you must make sure that you are not in violation on any labor laws or any legislation that you are. That speaks a lot to what we were talking about. This is what happens in head office, but the law here is different. Like in the States, I think it's 15 days maternity leave or 2 weeks off. In Kenya, it's 90 days. So head office has come and say, well, it's 15 days. How do you as HR make sure that you're customizing your policies within the local labor law context and come and say, head office, this we either do an addendum to some of those policies. We have a global policy, but in this country, this is what the labor law says in terms of very, very clear laws, leave policies, maternity leave, how to terminate an employee, stuff like that. So you'll need to customize them based on the circumstances and the locations that you work in. But one of the things I would also like to say is that make sure that you borrow the best practices of the parent company or the head office. You know, there are some very good best practices that you can borrow. Don't be afraid to borrow them and bring them, because then what do? You attract the best people in the workplace, in the market. You're able to keep people engaged and things like that. And again, if let's say they give 120 maternity days at head office, what stops you from coming and saying it's 120 in Kenya? Nothing stops you. Nothing. In fact, if anything, you should try and do that, because then if head office has already said it's 120, it's 120, and we see many organizations doing that. Then again, people will be saying, "Oh, that's a good place to work," because then their benefits are attractive. So, any question? Any input there? Any question? Violation, marrying the two, as you develop the policy, head office laws, country laws. What have you seen? What have you done that has really worked for you, that made you a very attractive employer? Anyone who'd like to share? Has not shared? Don't go with knowledge or experiences that people can learn from. Yes, Nganga.
Well, there are quite a number of projects that sometimes would bring you down, or you get disappointed. I've heard about 1 or 2 job evaluations. Apparently, it's something that I look at when I go to an organization, because much of the issues sometimes in an organization are around wages and general compensation and reward. So I've worked in 1 or 2 organizations, as a matter of fact 2, where you have engaged everybody to the extent even a budget is available for implementation, and or conducting the job evaluation, for example, and you do everything at the time of implementation. Now, some even managers, for that matter, when they realize probably their jobs have been lowered, definitely they become, it becomes a very big problem to implement. And I've seen this happening all the time. Sometimes even the union, they become hostile. They don't want it again, yet they initiated it. They wanted it. You involve them, even at the point of a contractor or the supplier, or even a consultant for that matter. You involve everything. But at the point of implementation, now they disrupt it and they say, no, we don't want it. It becomes very difficult, and you put it in abeyance and go on. Otherwise, it's quite hard sometimes where it touches a number of people who are interested. So it really feels bad when you have spent a lot of time and resources.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Very emotive. I keep saying job evaluations are as emotive as buying land in Kenya. So I can relate with you. Even just the sheer fact that we can say we need to do a job evaluation, which is a real good exercise, because it gives us the position that we are in the market in terms of workforce, in terms of talent, but it can become very emotive and almost getting to a place where people don't talk to each other. I've had that job evaluations where people's job were downgraded and they couldn't take it, and they gave me resignations, and you say it's not you, it's the job. Of course, they say, but I'm the holder of the job. And I say, yeah, that's the truth of the matter. Or where you come and say you expected to see a salary rise, and unfortunately, you have to be frozen until your colleagues get to where you, so they say, so what do I do with buying bread and butter from the shop because inflation keeps going on? So those are hard discussions, and every HR must be prepared to give those frequently asked questions with a lot of empathy, with a lot of understanding, repeat them over and over again. And even when people choose to disagree, what do you do? I mean, and that's why it is actually a management-led project exercise. Of course, it is in the hands of HR because they are the experts, but every step of the way, we must involve people. And that's why that committee comprises of all the key stakeholders to be there so that they can be able, but of course, people are just people. People will come and say, whatever huko kunaendelea ni mbaya sana, tuko vibaya sana. Isn't that what they keep on saying? So we lose track of what it is. So just moving on, thank you, Nganga, for sharing. So some of the tips around support from the employees as we are doing the HR strategy is to recognize transactional solutions. Be very quick to answer questions to problems that have been running on for a long time. Don't shy away from them. Make a habit of acting strategically in every endeavor. What does that mean for us? What results will we get from it? What kind of discussions should we be having? At what level? You know, and break it down as much as possible from the head of the organization to the janitor. I think not losing track that everybody is important in the organization, the position they hold and their level of understanding is different. From a strategic perspective, you might tell someone, I'm doing a job evaluation, I'm trying to see what percentile I'm in. When you tell that to a janitor, they might not understand. So you need to break down your communication in every strata and cadre in the organization. Sometimes we don't do that. I don't know why, but it's important to make sure that recognizing transactional solutions in every area, in everybody in the organization is important, because that's when you become a solution department. HR should be solution focused instead of people saying, oh, I can't go to HR. Be seen as a solution provider. And when people come, they've gone out with solutions, and sometimes stretching people in a way of, if you were in my shoes, what would you do? What solution have you brought that we can discuss? I hear you. Maybe I don't have a solution right now. I think that's a good suggestion. Allow us to discuss and come back to you in due course. And when you say you're going to go back to someone, please make sure that you go back, because that's the only way you'll effectively be able to do the work and people to support your HR strategy. Monitor and adjust the strategy. We've said that from time to time. There will be key performance indicators. Some things might change along the way. Think about COVID. When it came, we had all these grand plans, work plans, strategies that we wanted to put in place, but some businesses were thrown in disarray completely. Some businesses were shut. Some businesses went a bad dip. Some businesses thrived, you know. So in thriving, what did you do? Did you change the strategy? And that's when people forgot and say, oh, we did so well, we forgot to change the strategy. You got a windfall during COVID. Some companies really got a windfall. Some people suffered. So it was important for us to reevaluate. So it's not just when strategies are not working, but even when strategies are working so well, we must remember that, to sit down and take stock as to why. Something that is not achieving the desired results should be articulated. So any questions about implementing a best HR strategy? Are you able to think through it? Are you able to come up with one, given all the pointers that we have discussed? Cognizant of time. Okay, let's quickly look at the purpose of strategic human resource management. Of course, we know that Strategic HR will improve organizational performance by integrating and aligning the business strategy. Benefits seen from strategic planning include lower turnover, like what we said, increased employee happiness. People need to be happy at their place of work, and heightened productivity. Those three things, if you don't see them around, the benefits of having a real strategy and planning around people, then there's a nut that is not tight enough, and you need to go and see which screw is a bit loose and tighten it by reinforcing it with the policies that you have in place and things that people are discussing around. So it's important to check what's my turnover, increased employee happiness. How can we gauge people's happiness? Is there a way to engage people's happiness? Or happiness is left at home, at the door? Come, it's serious work here. How can we know that people are happy at the place of work? And is it a key ingredient for us to have? Anyone? I think you can do surveys, you can see less complaints, good quality work in terms of that. Okay. So strategies that you can use commonly are the legal compliance, employee engagement, like what I have said, a good performance management system. For me, that is the ultimate. And the corporate image, what all these things really gives you a good overall view of some of the real strategies that are commonly used in the organization. So, and some of the things that you can really do well is make sure that your recruitment and selection criteria is very purposeful. You bring in people who resonate with your culture, with your values, with your traditions, with your beliefs. A good onboarding experience. People do understand what is expected of you, how is it going to, whatever. And onboarding and orientation, they're subset. Orientation is a subset of onboarding. So how do people really become engaged? If people lose it at the onboarding stage, you have got a big uphill task to make sure that they settle down well. The communication should be transparent and done at the appropriate time. What are the growth opportunities that we have in this organization to make sure that I am growing as a person and I'm also helping the company grow? So these are some of the strategies that you will put in your HR strategy, and we've talked about them. What are the benefits packages, competitive salaries? What can you do to make sure that those packages are competitive? You go out to the market. What are your social responsibilities? Some people are very drawn into saying that, how does this organization work within the communities that they are located? What do they serve? The greater good. It's not just because we are located here. Yeah, we are doing business. That's it. The people who are around you in that community would like to be part of you. So we cannot divorce those two. The social responsibility and also making sure that your employees ascribe to that as well, internally and externally. And there are some people who will ask you, what's our social corporate responsibility? What are we doing much more to be accepted as a brand in the communities we work with and the people and the services that we offer the people? So diversity and inclusion is important. We've talked about that. Someone came and said, hey, on the chat group, I've just said, stop talking about LGBT. Let's not digress and whatever. But I think that was important because it's a hot topic on the plates of HR. So internal factors, you will look at your mission and statement. We all know that. I'm just now summarizing what we in depth and spoke at length. The organizational strategy, you need to work in tandem with that concurrently, and the size of the organization. There are some organizations which have over 100,000 people. There are organizations which have staff complement as low as 30 or even 20, you know, those are still organizations, and we need to have policies and strategies that support the organization. So no matter the size of your organization, you will not say that, oh, I will just panel beat and I show that I have something. Think about being progressive all the time. Even if it's your business that you have 5 people you're employing now, do you have policies that are really bespoke and they speak to your business? If you envision yourself growing, both turnover and in terms of staff complement, what are you doing? So never shy and say, oh, I'm only 5 people, I'm not going to put a policy. And only when I get 20 will I put a sexual policy, because that's what the law advocates for. Start now and then go progressively improving. It's easier. So the size of the organization, again, if you're multinational, make sure that you come back home and say, this is the environment that we operate in, and this is how we are going to make sure that the policies are developed. So the size of organization will also bear in mind how we develop some of these policies that we have in place. External factors, of course, we are looking at competition, legislation, and regulations of the country, the changing economic and domestic economy. We right now know that the dollar has done a runaway. I think the people who are benefiting a lot now are the people who are paid by the dollar. Is it something that you can go back to your organization and say, well, budgets are done using hard currency, the dollar, the pound? Is it possible for people to be paid in those currencies so that they can benefit from the runaway inflation? So these are discussions that HR needs to be alive to. When people are saying, hey, the cost of living is too high, what is your responsibility? We also know that in turn, businesses are not doing well. So timely communication and showing concern for people is important. Keep alive to the fact that international and domestic markets, if you had if you work in the international space and maybe you are affected by the calamity and in Syria and in Turkey, whatever, I know some colleagues who had offices there, they were affected. It meant that they needed to change their strategy around people and make sure that they are supporting them. So don't be left behind not knowing, oh, I don't work in those markets. Just know that these international economies, and plugging into that, you'll have to support the business one way or another. Okay. So I want, we've already said that what is a strategy orientation around HRM, of course, is to make sure that it aligns to the people business. It aligns to the common goal that we have long-term goals for the organization. We want to keep people for the longest time possible in our organization. But even when we keep them, it's not just keeping them. How are we developing the people as they go around? So when you say I'm a strategic HR practitioner, what does it mean? It means that you are so aligned to the business. You understand the business. You are talking the language of the business. You are going in and giving strategic, what word am I trying to, whatever. You are thinking strategically and you are giving strategic solutions to the business, like what I said, but in every level, and breaking it down to the language that everybody understands in the business, that you can be relied upon to bring solutions to the table to be able to do that. You are not just operational. You've done the policies, they are good. But let's now level it up and say we have a strategy and this is what the strategy says. I'm an expert in this. And if you feel that you don't have the full understanding and the experience to be able to do it, how about calling upon your colleagues? How about having a mentor? How about having a coach to be able to learn and accelerate your learning? And it's only in doing that you become better and better at it, you know? So we've talked about the importance of strategic HR, alignment to the business. You link the organization to the people. You build a balanced and ready workforce that is willing to change as when demands are made. You provide a framework for linking people in management, developing best practices which are long-term and goal-oriented, and you can be able to see the outcomes of it. And then, you get people, you always get the right people. Sometimes I keep on saying, when I put up an advert, how many people know of my brand, and how many adverts, how many applicants do I get? Some brands are well known, no doubt about it. Some brands are not too well known. But the moment I bring in someone, they say, oh my gosh, how come I didn't know about you earlier? I'm so happy to be here. So whether you are a well-known brand or less known brand, you want to give people an experience, and when they come to work with you, then they say it was worth applying and I took the chance on you, because both of us are taking chance on each other, the employer and the employee. We are coming together and meeting. We are coming together and saying, let's do this. So that's how you grow your brand. So the truth of the matter is that there will be Fortune 500 companies. People will want to run there and work with those brands, but even those brands were built from somewhere and they continue to grow. So when you think about it, that everybody has a great opportunity to grow their brand, and growing brand is through making sure that you get in the right people. And when people come in, you are treating them correctly, then you have the opportunity to grow that ground. Okay. Benefits, of course, we know everything that goes with it: low turnover, people finding happiness, you avoid crisis in the organization, you don't feel that you're working alone, it's not disruptive, you're able to meet your goals, giving leaders the tools to help focus on implementing their strategic initiatives. And this is important because line managers must be keepers of people's issues. Line managers do, as much as possible, should not do the operational work in the department. Line managers should be able to motivate and provide strategic direction of the business. But most of the time is that line managers will always run to HR, hey, help me. Someone is not coming on duty at the right time. How about you being able to do that? If you enable line managers with the tools, the policies that they need to reference, then you'll have less time to do operational work and you will concentrate on strategic work. So strategic HR planning and management is all about enabling the line managers to run their HR function and to come to you on bigger things that they need support in. But every day, absenteeism, sick leave, managing performance, motivating people should be the prerogative and the responsibility of the line manager. And that's when you become a true business partner to the business and to the line managers, because you have a good strategy that is understood. And remember, it's understood by everybody. It speaks to all the business arms. And then the other thing is that people have understood the policies and they know where to find them and they can be able to understand them. They've actually understood them. And understanding them is continuous feedback and also being able to have that communicated from time to time. Any question? Any question? I've talked for a long time now. Just want to hear whether there is any feedback before we call it a day. Any input around your strategy and what you are doing at your place of work? Do managers run to you all the time, or you've given them the tools to be able to run the HR agenda, the people agenda with their team? Anybody? Or what are some of the challenges that you have seen? Let's share. Anything that you'd like to share? Okay. Of course, there'll be whatever. I think the most important thing, challenges in strategic HR management will be around always recruitment, retention, engagement, and leadership, and it's not around It's more of developing the people to take the next big step that they want in the organization, because sometimes resources are not enough. And of course, also leadership is also maybe not supportive enough of what you want to do. The culture of the organization, budget will always be a constraint. The demographic changes, we were working in this location, now we are closing. Maybe we've been acquired by a new organization. We have to think about the rules and conditions and the culture of that organization. People being apprehensive of new technology, you know, AI being very rife and what we need to do, and people craving for work-life balance. You know, we say that we want balanced teams, but still there's so much work that makes people work after working hours. And of course, now there was that policy where people will say that you don't contact people after working hours. Again, a big debate that was there in the HR, in the HR circles, of saying, I've enabled you with the phone, I've enabled you with the data, I've enabled you with voice. You know that maybe your contract says that we'll call you after working hours. Where does it, again, you know, where do we draw the line? But again, a good organization will come and say, let's do what? Let's make sure that we are balancing as much as possible. I think giving people that freedom to know that when I knock off work, I'm free to do the things that support me and make me happy, balance me off. But if my boss constantly calls me for deadlines which are 2 weeks away from now, then I don't feel, I almost feel that it's harassment. And can I be able to bring that to the fore and I'm listened to? So some of those challenges around letting people speak, letting people find a balance between their work and their family life and stuff like that is extremely important. And managers need to know where to give that space. It's not to say that emergencies will not come. Emergencies will come. It's not to say that deadlines will not be met and you need to extend those deadlines or burn the midnight oil to meet the deadlines. I don't think it's an everyday occurrence. And when it's done, people are happy to do it. But when people are doing it begrudgingly, then it means your people are not engaged and people are not happy at work. Anything before we look at the last topic of ethics? And anybody, just to wrap it up, in strategic HR, what have you seen? What have you done? What are you doing differently? Someone to wrap it up for us? Is it difficult? Is it something that you do? I know all of us do all these things. We do them in pockets here and there, but let's have someone just giving us the experience around that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anyone? Okay, so let's move on. What is ethics and what is unethical? Our code of conduct in HR. Which one do you take, the narrow way or the wide way? Will we have some unethical behavior, some ethical behavior in HR? I think it speaks to your brand and your reputation, what you are known for. I had said earlier that when you look at your work, someone can say, this is really XYZ's work. Look at it. Always, you know, your brand should be in everything that you do. Where you carry yourself in the society, at home, you know, should be no brainer. I think there are some behaviors and values that everybody should espouse as a human being. Respect for others, kindness, you know, integrity. So there are some things that ascribe are general worldwide, and there is no question about it. So the same comes into how we do our work from a HR perspective, you know, HR ethics. And what are ethics? You know, ethics have been defined as part of the human society right from time of Plato and Aristotle. The word ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, which means character, conduct. How do you brand yourself? And we know that someone who was highly reputable does one thing and their brand crashes and there's no turning back. That's it, you know, like the guy who, what's the name of the guy who one day in the stock market, what's his name? The guy who had such a good name in making money in the US stock exchange. How can I forget his name? And then when people saw that all that was window dressing, they were so disappointed and people lost a lot of money. Someone remind me. It's a major series on one of the TV documentaries. So, and we know even people in this country who have lost their reputation because they did something that we never thought that they would be. So I keep on saying, you don't have another opportunity to make a first impression. We all know that. And also it takes a long time to come back, to build back your reputation. So guard it as if the world, it's all that you've got in the world. Your professionalism. When people say, I went for the interview and that HR was so professional. The process was beyond whatever. Internally, people know that when you start a process, you're going to follow it through. And if you need to change course, you call people, all the stakeholders who are involved, and say, we have a challenge. What should we be doing about it? You just don't take that, whatever. We know people, we know peers and people in the industry who have been pointed out and say, if you need to get a tender in this company, you might have to give me some money, you know. So people talk behind. I keep on saying, what do people say about you when you are not in the room? That just sums it all. What would people say about you when you are not in the room? So I keep on saying, you don't have another opportunity to make a first impression. So make it matter when you do. So there'll be rights and wrongs in that. It is this ethics, we are talking about your character, your reputation, that makes an individual make a decision whether you're going to do the right thing or the wrong thing in any given situation. So some situations the easy way out is to do the bad thing, and the hard way is to do the right thing. Which will you choose over? To do the right thing? And even if a wrong thing has happened, do you have the honesty and the guts to come and say, this has really happened and I really gnashed over here. I shouldn't have done this. Let me just declare it as quickly as possible. Don't wait for people to whistleblow for you to be known that that happened. And unfortunately, that's it. I had another issue around whistleblowing, and I heard someone was trying to see how best to support them. They didn't give the names of something. So this HR person had employed the sister in another branch, didn't have imagine me, Catherine, working in XYZ company, in charge of HR in this branch, and I decide to employ my sister in another branch, a bigger branch. They didn't have the paperwork, you know, stuff like that, because they were in charge of that. And then when the whistleblowing was done, it was murky of what it is. So they were asking, what do we do? And they didn't expect anything like that. Or even when they were found out, they still started denying and stuff like that, but the allegations had already been there. It's so murky, it's so bad, because then everybody is involved and it's a waste of time for everybody. And people, the last thing they always say, we never expected you to do that. But how about coming to own up? And as much as it is embarrassing, and come and say, sorry, I never thought, it just Satan come over me. That's what people say. But your ethics, again, as a leader, cannot be underestimated, especially when you have power. People will look up to you. And sometimes people will use raw power to downtrod others. Ethics is one of the crucial qualities that a leader should possess. It is due to this fact that leaders will have followers when you have good ethics. Also, the nature of relationship between leaders and followers is such that leaders influence their followers. They influence their followers positively. And that's when people believe in you, then people tend to follow you much more easily. As a HR leader or an aspiring leader, and everybody is a leader in their own right, the followers that you have whether they look at you from afar, whether they are they work with you hand in hand, do they feel that they feel the desire and they feel the motivation to follow you? Leaders can have both positive as well as negative influence with their followers and can affect the lives of the followers. So whenever a leader will positively or negatively influence his followers, greatly depend on the leader's character and behavior and the nature and the outcome of his behaviors. We have said over and over again that one of the things that we need to address is the behaviors of a leader and also the culture that we come from, the kind of values that we ascribe to, makes sure that our behaviors are beyond reproach. Sometimes as a leader, we have to exercise due diligence over and above. And if you know that maybe you really don't want to be put on the spot, then don't become a leader. It's the same thing as HR practitioners. We have a code of conduct by IHRM. Do we ascribe to it? And do we help our colleagues who are caught in the crossfire of ethics to come and say, hey, you are crossing the line and you are going to be flagged out? We have the responsibility of helping everybody become more ethical, and where they are falling, then we need to support them instead of putting them in the spotlight and come and say, I have something to tell you. How about doing things differently, because it's touching on your reputation, it's touching on the reputation of our profession, it's also touching on the reputation of the organization and the bigger picture of the society. You are well respected. How can you do things differently? So let's always try and support leaders in that aspect. So importance is, of course, to make sure that we cannot belabor that people will follow you because they think that you have good influence and it possesses that. And also some things that if it's so hard, then it goes back to what we have discussed around policies. When you say this policy, this is the standard way of doing this policy, then it helps you refrain you from doing some of the things that you would like to do. So again, it goes back, it's as a snowball effect, and you can see how policy strategies and ethics all tie up in the area of leadership, because everybody is a leader. If you will not then be able to contain yourself as an individual, how about referencing the policies and the procedures, the strategies that have been put in place to help you become a better person and a better version of yourself? So how are we able to improve ethical leadership in an organization? As I wind up, proper ethics committee can be put in place. We can have whistleblowing policies in our organization. We can make sure that we're evaluating from time and again through internal audits, external audits. We are having subcommittees that we consider some critical decisions that need to be done in the organization. So it's not just one person, and I'd already addressed that. And then protocols, hotlines to be used for the organization. We also have consequences of when ethics are broken in an organization. What can we do? We're also keeping data on how many malpractices we have picked up in the organization for us to be able to do what? To be able to reinforce our policies. How do we select new colleagues in the organization or new employees? We make sure that we are selecting them in a way that they ascribe to our culture. And finally, the other thing is that to make sure that the onboarding and the regular feedback that we give as an organization talks about ethics. We cannot just say we've done this and this and this and this and that and fail to give data and overview of some of the malpractices that have happened in these organizations. When you look at all the public, the listed companies in the stock exchange, they are now expected to give a report on ethical leadership, how many malpractices they have done, they have been done in the organization, and how many, what were the results, what they did when that was that came to their attention. And they're also supposed to report on many other things, ethics, governance, climate change and stuff like that. So start looking into those kind of reports so that you're also able to look inwardly to support some of those things in your organization. So those are good places to start thinking, what are some of the malpractices that have been reported in the public listed companies? And what is happening internally in my organization? In turn, what do they do to stop these malpractices? Because sometimes it's in knowing what's happening out there, are you able to reinforce what is happening internally in your organization? Is that okay? Okay, so the very last one, ethics in HR. Ethics in HR means helping the organization entrench and uphold its values at all levels in order to maintain and increase trust. In doing so, accountability takes a big part and plays a key role in that. So results will be when we are accountable, what are some of the strategic results that we will see? Increased transparency, enhanced trust, enhanced communication, enhanced teamwork and engagement, critical thinking in decision making, quicker and more efficient and more ethically sound, and then the damage control will be able to minimize it to the minimum, because it talks to our brand, it talks to the people, and it talks to how people consume our products and services. We know organizations which have been brought down to their knees because of internal malpractices when they were found. The other day, again, another place where we need to think into, the BBC did an expose on some of the multinational tea firms of what's happening there. It talked into our HR leadership and how we onboard people. It was actually very embarrassing for me as a HR practitioner. And I was just like, this is so bad for our profession. And I hope you felt the same. And what did we do about it? I'm sure you said, well, bad enough. Did it go back? Did you look at our policies to see whether there's any gap? If it's recruitment, how are people being recruited? Whether you as the head of department, you can't be everywhere at the same time, but are you tightening those kind of policies to make sure that there are no gaps and and the consequences, if that is being found, what are the consequences you're going to make? So hard decisions, it's all around policies and procedures in the organization and how you're going to move forward towards it. Okay. So that marks the end of our training or our workshop today. So HR ethics are code of conducts required by HR, respect the uniqueness and intrinsic worth of every individual, treat people with dignity, respect and compassion, foster a trust work environment, free of harassment, intimidation, and unlawful discrimination, ensure that everyone has the opportunity to develop their skills and new competencies, make sure that you are operationalizing the Section 30 of the HRMPEB Act, that making sure that your code of ethics, we've talked about it, you're plugging into all those agencies and making sure that you're also keeping relevant with IHRM membership and judging professional conduct. So we have many places to plug into making sure that the HR ethics are being upheld. But again, going back to where we are saying, what are the policies that you have internally to speak into the general conduct of these? And what are some of the things that we are doing strategically to be able to do that? Okay, great. Thank you. So that marks the end. I'm open to questions. I'm open to feedback. Was it useful? What would you have liked to see more? Anything that was not clear, feedback? You can take it back to plenary. Any question?